Hello and welcome! Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, check out these courses, and enjoy this clown-versation! Am I having? Hello, everybody. Hello. Can you hear me? I think I might be having some technical problems this morning. You know what just happened? I'm going to bring you in, Jef.
I don't know. I can barely hear you. Can you hear me? Wait, let me turn this fan off. Maybe I hear you better.
Hello, hello. You know, I've just been speaking into this camera for the last 5 minutes and thinking that I was on, and I think I was off the whole time. I was literally talking for 5 minutes.
I love that. We talk on the telephone and they hang up and you don't know it. You keep going. A big story. And
Oh my God. Listening. This is just one of those days, Jef.
Oh, man.
Put it on.
You go out of town. You go out of town to make a show to make people happy. You come home, you're deadly ill with COVID. This is the world. This is the world we live in. Yeah.
How are you feeling? Thank you so much for doing this.
Today's better, a little bit up. 2 days ago, not so good. Feel like I was in a tumble dryer with a sack of bricks next to me.
Oh my
It's horrible. It feels like someone has the fingers in my ears and is shaking my head. My eyes are jiggly. The eyes are swollen. They hurt. The head's the body aches. The fever's gone, but it was, I don't know, 104, 140 C. I don't know what that is.
Oh my goodness! That is scary, and I'm so sorry, and I'm so grateful to you for joining us anyway and being here for this conversation.
I feel lucky that I'm breathing without complication. But anyway, yeah, of course, we planned this chat, so I'm excited to chat. We never chatted face to face. We've only chatted in words.
Yeah,
so great to see you. I don't know where to look. My iPad's sideways, and I see you there. So I'm going to look at you, and I'll look like I'm.
You can look wherever you like.
I hold this up. The world is better. Can you see it? I don't know.
Yeah, the world is better because of you. That's beautiful. Is that a present for me? Are you giving me?
Yeah, I'm showing you. And then, yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, the world is better because of you and because of all of the lovely people watching us.
I don't have mascot. You know, it's all about where you are in the world. You know.
That's awesome. Look, Cheetah Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, well, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He's everything. Stay puffed.
Whereabouts are you, Jef? Are you in the States?
I'm in San Miguel de Allende in the state of Guanajuato in Mexico.
Ah.
And I'm in the little storage building next to the house where we stay, which is across the garden. This is where I make my little studio office where I work. So now I'm going to be forced to sleep out here, I think, with all the possums and scorpions.
You are in isolation. It's literally out there.
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, I stayed out here in the mountains because we're in the country. It's nice air. It's we don't have to go and mix with people. I made the decision to go out of town and make a show in a bar. I think the buses I had to take where people don't care, and you know they have this kind of mask situation.
Yeah.
And here you don't have so much vaccine, and then I don't know, somehow another Omicron or whatever got me. I thought it might have been a flu, so I had the test come this morning and confirmed positive for COVID. So now we wait for my wife to see if she catches it, which is hopefully not, because we'll see. You know, I don't want to be more complicated.
What's it like to be a clown with COVID? Is that this exciting new experience?
I don't know. In a way, maybe it's good because it somehow makes me reminds you of a few things. One is mortality. You could die any minute. You could have a blood clot from this. I know I lost count at 200 of my contact students, or I say people I know, or one person removed, like a family member, a friend of theirs, which I've seen online. I lost count at 200 lost to COVID, from world-class circus athletes to Olympic athletes to old people to unhealthy people, all kinds of people. So, this is a whole topic for me that a lot of people are, a lot of hippie kumbaya people believe if you eat radishes and don't drink Coca-Cola, you're fine. Other people like me who were, I was a molecular pharmacology researcher before I dedicated myself to theater.
No way. Wow.
Handling viruses, looking at vaccines, looking at pathology of these things. For me, it's a bit of a scare when you say pandemic and there's kind of social responsibility. But I don't want to open that can of worms. A lot of people get very, they don't quite understand the math or the statistics, or they believe one version of it. I don't. Anyway, in this case, you get a raincoat, it's going to keep you dry in a shower. It's not going to keep you dry in a hurricane with tornadoes and sideways blowing rain. So the idea is to keep the rain not so heavy. We reduce the amount of drops and then the severity of the storm by reducing the load. We reduce the load by giving it less opportunity, and that has to constantly be adapted and evolving as things mutate and evolve. So in this way, it reminds me of a clown in the sense that you can't. This idea that the Anglophone idea is very focused on performer, comedian, make people laugh, or the Gaulier idea, clown, the person who makes the people laughing. For me, this isn't at all what I focus on. This is not what attracts me. I'm much more attracted to the sense of wonderment that comes from being an observer in the world, to get back to that simple state of curiosity, of a curious fascination with everything that's around me. So there's no. Instead of trying to hold dominion and explain everything with a proper solution, with the formula, the formula, paramulas, instead of trying to be the master of my domain, I want to simply flow to experience or to feel part of my domain. So in this way, being sick, any kind of sick, whether you have cancer or this or fleeting disease or even your fear of being sick, it all sort of stimulates your frequency and gets you very aware of the present moment, and then that way it reminds me of clown in that way.
That's very, very interesting. So your clown philosophy is really driven by this much broader idea of it sounds like, who we are in the world, this kind of eternal search for understanding.
I don't know if it's broader, maybe it's less broad. I think a performer who spends hours every day throwing things in the air and catching them and doing it to music doing this for 20 minutes, it can be hypnotic, it can be wonderful, it can be entertaining. It has to do with clown. I have no idea about this person other than how they spend their day, practicing this over and over. So you have facility, you've mastered this little facility, and now what? If you use it with some philosophy or put it in some context that's revelatory, then I resonate with it. For me personally, it doesn't resonate because that isn't my bag. I throw oranges in the air, I get dizzy. But there are people who do it very well. It depends. I don't think there's an absolute definition, but I'm much more fascinated with the idea of connection and how we as observers, when we're in a state of play, when we observe and respond to ever-changing circumstances, we link in consciousness, physical and mental consciousness. We breathe the same. Our hearts align in rhythm. Our bodies become we become like an organism with several feet, Like they're one mind in the room when 10 or 20 people are suddenly engaged in this flowing, morphing experience. And with an audience looking at something, it's amazing if we can get their trust and gain their complicity very early on. Then the focus shifts from being a judge or a critic to being purely a witness and observer. So they're sort of curious what's going to happen next. So all the senses are alive, and then the thought process of, oh, this is crap, or this is wonderful, or oh, isn't this wonderful? I told you he's funny. All this social analysis goes out the window, and they're more in a pure kind of visceral state of observing. And in that state, the observer can see a bigger picture that I can't see when I'm playing spontaneously, or you and I can't see when we're doing some kind of little game, but they can see us in a bigger context and stimulate memories or fantasies that they have. And then they say, oh, he should turn at this moment. And suddenly, as a performer, you have this urge to turn for no reason, because there's this quantum connection. There's some kind of connection in this space between the attention given to us and the action that we take. So
fascinating.
I'm very fascinated in this space between the observer and the action. My observance of the world, or noticing one thing and how picking one thing up and putting it against the background changes my belief or my fantasy, about what this is. And so
I've got so many questions.
Trying to be more about this stupid genius or this very simple curiosity of,
Yeah.
that everything's possible and doesn't have to have an explanation.
I have so many questions that just are coming up as you speak. I'm not going to be able to keep track of them all. And by the way, if anyone has questions as well, they'd like to put to Jef, responding to this amazing sort of stimulus he's giving us right now in his COVID-induced delirium. Although I imagine this is probably quite similar to how you talk in workshops and normal times anyway.
There we go. No anymore. COVID delirium is exactly right. Maybe
we're gonna express the COVID delirium.
I don't know. I want to feel something next to my head, so I feel more. Now I got my thinking cap on.
Yeah,
so,
that is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, also if anyone has a question, whatever, you can always put it in the group also, right? Like we can chat about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure
especially if it's some complex question.
The weird thing is, Jef, I thought that was a snake hanging on the wall at the back when it was on the wall. I thought that was not a real snake, but I thought it was
this is something to play with in a Zoom lab. I found this at like a pound shop or a dollar shop. I don't know. So it's really cool. It's just a tie, some mechanism to tie stuff. But I love it that it's so for as a kid, this would be my fantasy toy. You can make anything with it. Things like this, seeds. Seeds are really such a great symbol because if you look at the gastronomy of Latin America or India or Africa or certain places, they haven't lost a seed, whereas in the United States we've shifted to eating from a box. In Mexico, everything's still from the seed, from the bean, from the maíz, the corn, which is ground into a kind of grain, into a flour that's made to tortilla. So anywhere you have a flat bread or a seed-based culture where bread is made daily, everything you eat, it comes from the enrichment from the simple seed. Where the food hasn't been lost. There's something really magical and valuable about family, sharing a meal around the table, food and what we ingest, and the ritual of transformation from the simplest to something that gives us life. That for me is also very central to my
I can tell that you're
pedagogic idea about clown.
That's very, very grounded in the earth and in nature and in kind of real things, like solid things that you can touch and you can kind of like get your hands in and get dirty with. Even the backdrop behind you, you're in this stone cottage, surrounded by
pretty much this place filled with scorpions.
Filled with scorpions. And it's life-giving in some way.
Yeah, I mean, these stones, this part of the house that we stay in here used to be a chapel, and I think the stones on the first level are from the original monastery, so it's quite old, several centuries. I'm not sure this is sort of you see the bricks are extended, like parts of our house. The first level is these huge boulders, and then there are bricks up. So it's like the original footprint is quite old, like several hundred years old. And then the top is extended with bricks and made into a home. But it's fascinating, it's very fascinating to be in this place. It always reminds you of age. The stones are alive, but we see them as stills. We say, oh, they're dead, the rocks. But the earth is like a stone, and if someone came here billions of years ago and saw a stone, they would say, "Oh, this planet is dead," But in our own time, here we are, and it's thriving. If they come back, they say, "Oh my God!" The same with these stones. If you come back in several millennia, they might have moss on them or something. This kind of thing is like blows my mind. It's idiotic. Like we as kids, we see this, we see possibility, and we're told not to look there. That's not important.
And how does this connect? How does this connect with your creative process, Jef? Like, it seems to me when I look at your pictures and images of your work, everything you do is sort of surprising and different and unusual and like, oh, what is he doing in that? That doesn't look like clown. It's some amazing creation. So how do you come up with these things?
I don't know. I came from theater for most of my life, and doing dance and theater and scripted theater, and you had to be perfect, and then physical comedy, and whether it's classical or contemporary drama with comedies, you have to work out a script, to work out the timing. As a director, you have to work out the logistics of the stage, how many actors and your budgets, and all these details, I love doing that. Theater is my core. But after so much of that, and then going into Snowshow, for example, where I had a mentor who was the artistic director there, and we worked extensively one-on-one with theatrical concepts, because he was at the time he died, unfortunately, but Chernyakhovsky is considered one of the great theater teachers of the 20th century. And so I had a fascination for this Russian school of theater, but there are many things to take into consideration when it comes to what is the process of theater, where you have everything. Your objective is to prove to the audience that you're capable. In a communist society, communist theater, if you look at performance in China or circus or from communist countries or countries which were very regimed, like have regimented sort of approach. Precision is greatly appreciated by the public. So the audience sees something very precisely done, they go, wow, like crazy. And I thought, well, how can I, after so many years of stressing out about making a mistake and getting angry and being stressed all the time, something could go wrong? What would happen if I went on stage with nothing prepared? They say, you can't do it. So it was constantly putting me in a frame of mind that, and giving the sound designer permission to do whatever he wanted, giving the lighting designer permission to do whatever they want, giving the guy backstage permission to run across the stage or blow smoke or do whatever they want. How could that be possible? And so I started to play like that. And I would panic because they would put Michael Jackson on right when I was imagining something else. But that's the world. The minute we have all the recipe and ingredients together to do something for a project or for a job or for a day, something invades our space and says, no, this is what you're going to pay attention to. The conditions every day change, are constantly changing. We get upset by this. We can be, roadblocked and panic. So I thought, well, why not spend some time trying to explore this possibility with an audience? So it became this messy, eclectic, weird bomb of possibilities. And over the years, I've taken my show Azar, which is, Azar means random in English. So let's play with trash. Maybe you've seen pictures of me with boxes and newspapers. Yeah. And this show is just sort of a big trash heap. And then over time, it evolved into something more organized, and it has specific routines, about 30 or 40. I'll use about 12 in any show. Or maybe a show is completely improvised. And that show runs between 45 minutes and 5 hours, depending on the night. And, I did 2 shows in Turin, and one day was 3.5 hours or 4 hours. The next day was 58 minutes. And the people the second day were very upset because their friends told them it was a 4-hour improvisation. But it didn't feel like 4 hours. So I don't know. I started to play with this idea of exploding it. But what I found was people often complain. They say, he didn't do anything. He told us it was going to be 45 minutes, and it was 2.5 hours, and I had dinner, and I missed it. But the door was wide open. We left the door purposefully open. Why didn't you leave? It was not nice to leave, and he was still going, and I couldn't stop watching him. Why not? Well, it was fascinating. What would he do next? He'll do something. And yeah, exactly. So I want people to consider, what is it theater, as a spectator, what is the demand you put on the stage? You have control to leave at any moment. Mm-hmm. To complain, I don't care. So that experiment is not about satisfying the audience. I don't really care about that. It's about opening a door and saying, welcome to this world, and I will play with you. And if you're going to be grumpy the whole time, that's fine. And that was sort of the first avenue. But that's been reduced further to a more recent concept called open space, where I have absolutely nothing, just a broomstick.
Wow.
And the most simple of costume, just cotton, pajamas, basically. And that's it, And the show I did last week, where I'm sure I got COVID, was completely bizarre. We had striptease, audience members stripping down to their nothings, and swimming on a floor with beer on it. And people say this is sloppy, it's not clown. Maybe.
That's very interesting. So it's actually.
I know we are touching many. We're exploring many things.
So this show is like a development of that as Azar in a way.
Yeah, well, it's a reduction, because the more I played Azar in different, the more opportunity I had to play it, different countries with different audiences, and discover things. I thought, well, when you travel a show with festivals, the biggest thing is like, how do you make a show really portable, easy to travel, right? That you can get booked. And well, no technician, no lights, no sound, just me in a room, some chairs. All I need is 2 bottles of water and a broomstick, done. It's easy for me to travel with it. but also it forces me again out of my mind because I think too much, I'm a thinker. But also when I play, I like to be thinking about, I like to look at and feel what's happening around me and sort of realize these sort of maps that appear. I don't know, I see lines like, I think of a visor like Iron Man or RoboCop, and little options come up and you click one and, you make actions sequences.
Is
so
that
if I'm
happening
going
in
this way
is
and have
that
an
happening in
impulse,
your
then I
brain?
see 3 or 4 red lines of where this action could take me.
Is that happening in your brain
between...
during the show, Jef? Is that sort of how it feels to you, that you're kind of, really, really quickly going through all these different options of where can I go, what am I going to do with this, and sort of constructing the show as you go?
That's part of it, and that's maybe how it started. There's a great book that I used to recommend to my Clown Lab students, and I still recommend to people. It's called Improvisation in Life and Art by Stephen Nachmanovich, he's a violinist. Yeah. It's a beautiful book, and I read it the first time, but there's this idea of parallel mind and perpendicular mind. The self-editor who's always stopping you when you have an impulse and saying, no, that won't work out, that's not a good, think again. Yeah. And there's something called parallel mind where you put an observer out, or like a co-pilot, it sort of tells you, when to take care and not crash the car and when to turn. So what I started to practice was the idea of parallel mind. So I started to think, well, what if I just take my attention to one particular laugh in the audience. There's a crazy laugh. I mark where it is, and I set out a little head, and all it does for 1 hour and a half is watch that person or listen for that laugh. Yeah. Then another one goes over here. So I send out like 40 little beacons that are paying attention to different details in the audience. And then I try to, and I'm tuning in. I'm listening to all these little alarms. At the same time, I have to give my brain something to do on stage. So the moments that I like most are ones where I go blank. Yeah. And I had to learn to stand and wait for the tsunami to come. It always comes. A wave will always come if you wait for it. Don't rush, don't push. Yeah. There's something beautiful about watching the stupidity of complete, not acting like, I don't know what to do. Not like this, just being like, there's a moment, it's really, for the audience, it's always quite interesting how they react. And then there's inevitably a little sound, a shift in weight, in someone in the audience that cracks a seat, that's all I need. Or a sneeze, there's some reaction. What? I don't know. For me, it's not about me on the stage doing anything. It's about the audience, and I'm trying to tune into them. So
what was it like being, I want to say that chained, but maybe that's sort of putting words in your mouth. What is it like to be restricted to a script, like in Snowshow, where you had to perform a role and I imagine to do things very, very specifically in exactly the same way? Well,
that's where I come from. I come from very dance and very precise physical theater. That's my background. So I love that. But I think in Snowshow, you have to keep in mind, Snowshow is also improvisation. So if I'm an improvisation artist, and I don't know that I am, we're improvising right now, right? We don't have a script. So how are we doing this conversation?
I don't know.
Then what Slava was very interesting because between Chernyakhovsky and Slava, there's a great education there. Slava was very interesting. He would say, okay, in telephone, there are 7 points of comedy, in the telephones. There are 7 points that he identifies. Mm-hmm. But there was a time when he would give me total freedom on that number in New York to run it as long as I wanted. Sometimes it would run 20 minutes, just that one number. Wow. I would even do it as a green clown sometimes. But I broke my voice doing that. My falsetto got broken because I had bad vocal technique. In New York, I broke my voice. So I lost the fluency I had with that number after I left New York and went on tour. My quality of that was not. But he gave me permission. He would say, if you don't want to come with a rope, don't come with a rope in the beginning.
Wow. That was,
if you want, he was very nice. And I did I struggled because it's not easy. It took me like 2 or 3 years to figure out that the coat thing was not about imitating his mime. It was about understanding that there are 2 beings here. My arm is not my arm. It's there's another person there, and they have a completely different, it has an internal life, an internal rhythm. So my arm is an extension of a whole life, and then this internal life and rhythm is different. There has to be a contrast. If it's just a mime doing movement, then it looks like a mime doing a puppet show. It can be entertaining. It can move very precisely, like many do, but it can be also very, very empty. It's like a beautiful bottle for water that has nothing in it.
So what's the difference?
For me,
how do
I
you
found
how
my
do you
way of doing it.
how do you give that? What's the technical difference? How do you, as a performer, make sure that you're giving that that coat, that sort of internal rhythm and life, and not just miming it?
I don't know. I mean, you do it over and over. You're constantly, you know, the method of encouragement by that school or system is more military. So it's like, even if they think you're brilliant, they're not going to tell you for 3 years. You know, you wait 3 years, 5 years minimum to say good job. You know, this is a harsh environment. So you're pushed and pushed and pushed. It's never good enough. The minute you have to do these 10 steps to achieve it. The minute you get to the 10th step, it goes back to 0, and you got to work back up 10 more, and you get back. You know, and you're constantly doing this ladder of steps that never ever. I can tell you, this little ball. There was a little earth, right? A little plastic, a little rubber ball, bouncy ball, a planet. That I don't know if you know the show. It descends down and spin it and knock it with a nose. That's on a monofilament, and it's cranked down by a fishing thing. Oh, I shouldn't tell the secret, right? I'm telling all the secrets. The ball descends, and you have to hit it with one hand to spin it, right? Just that. If you hit it wrong, it goes jukey, right? It goes bound, bound, bound. If you hit it just off it, you throw it off center.
Yeah.
So they say, can you do it? And you can't. Most people will try 2 hands. No, you're not allowed. Only one hand. Bah, 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 to send it spinning. So I do it, and it didn't work. And he said, do it 100 times. And if you mess up in 0 to 100, you'll start again at 0. When you can do 100 times, tell me, and I'll come and watch you do 100 times.
This is exactly the same as Misha.
And then he said, do 600 times.
Yeah.
You know? And then finally, it was like, you can do it with your eyes closed. And then when they have someone videographing the show, that's the time you send it. You know.
This is exactly the same story that Misha Usov told me about how he learned the ping pong routine. Exactly the same. The 100 times. If you mess up, go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And once you can do it 100
times. Very
Russian
figure skating, acrobatic gymnast. Is old school, you know. Chinese coaches I worked with before in the past with acrobats. This was the same. It was very disciplined, very military, very
interesting,
very athletic.
And so that was an education for you. And did you appreciate that, or for you is that not really the route? I mean, it seems to me that your teaching isn't.
Well, of course, because I mean, this is at the time this was a diversion from my sort of, it's kind of a dream. And the education for me was not so much from Slava as much from Chernikovsky. He was the great. He was a mentor to me. Slava, of course, also, but Slava doesn't he mentors in another way. It's very Zen, sort of indirect. You sort of learn by indirect proposal. It's not directly spoken. It's very deep experience, but also it's quite commercial. A commercial show runs the risk of losing the personal element that it once had.
And it must be very...
I'm American, I say, from the United States.
Yeah.
So there was obviously some fallout for those who didn't think it was right for a Yankee to be playing in the main role, and there's a big line of Russians who want to try that suit on stage. So there was a lot of politics that were not sort of in the spirit of the general environment of the show that we were trying to keep, and I found that tedious.
Do you know why they chose you?
Why they chose me? I think it had a lot to do with Chernikovsky's input in terms of what he thought of my potential. I ended up assisting him and training new hires and training people. I trained the first woman to play in the main green with a lot of resistance. A brilliant woman in the Aelita West, who I think is one of the most brilliant clowns, female clowns in the world. Who plays in the company. Yeah, in Snowshow, the thing to keep in mind is that there are no names. It's just Slava. So it's never approached, and to single people out is considered rude or disrespectful. At this point, removed from it, through all I've been through, in a conversation, just as a chat, I would say that the experience was incredible, but there are certain things I prefer not to talk about, just out of respect for the whole thing. It has a kind of... solemnity. I don't know how you say it. There's a certain quality to it.
Reverence.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. Well, so we started off the conversation talking about your most recent work, and then we talked about Snowshow. I feel like we're kind of regressing a little bit through your life. So I want to ask you about even before Snowshow, and like, what was it that, because you talked about your background in physical theater, but what was it that kind of got you into clown? Or when was the first time you thought, oh, maybe clown is something that I'm interested in?
You know, being from the United States and Houston and Ringling Brothers and all that, the idea of that type of clown terrified me. I mean, the last thing I would ever want to do. All this is terrifying, horrifying to me. Totally dishonest, completely garbage. Sorry, it's not my thing. There are people who do classical clowning extremely well, and they're very artistic. But then there's this massive community of people. I put a nose on, I paint my face. Hey, you want to be a clown? Come with me. I'll show you how in 3 easy steps. Put some hair on and bonk, bonk. My name's Buttons. What's your name? Hoo 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 hoo.
It's a good parody.
This is the easy convenience of the word. And for me, I never want to be that. But I do love physical comedy. You know, I grew up on Jerry Lewis and you know, how do you say, Laurel and Hardy and all these kinds of stuff growing up. My father loved the stuff. My father loved Benny Hill. You know, he's like a body, you know, Benny Hill, English, inappropriate.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's just brilliant, but inappropriate. So, but yeah, Tommy Cooper. You know, I didn't know who Tommy Cooper was. And Slava met me. He said, "This is like Tommy Cooper. You is Tommy Cooper." You know, so he saw some similarity to Tommy Cooper. So I started to research Tommy Cooper, who I never heard of before Snowshow, before 2005. And then I fell in love with Tommy Cooper. What a genius!
Yeah.
And then I found out that, like, Benny Hill got exported to the U.S. It was the question whether it would be Tommy Cooper or Benny Hill, and Benny Hill was the chosen one to be produced on the United States television, and not Tommy Cooper. So Tommy Cooper is not known in the States. But what a genius! What an underplaying genius he was.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
True clown. For me, Benny Hill's. I don't know why Benny Hill's a clown. He's like kind of a pervy sort of. I don't know what he is. But Tommy Cooper is a clown to me. I don't know. I say a lot of things to provoke people. You know, I want people to talk online. So I'll say something to try to provoke a response, because if you have a position, if you have an inclination, it's great to put it into words. Jump into the discussion. It's not about being right. You know, as Anglophones, we get obsessed with being right and holding dominion, and I can prove it. You're wrong. Clown is not that. This is clown.
Yeah,
whatever it
absolutely.
Is, whatever it is for you, that's fine. Clown's a mighty tree with lots of things. This is a word, and words are like containers. And you know, if I say to you, "What's this?" and I do this to a conference with 2,000 people, "What's this?" everyone will say water or agua. Really, it's water. Let me take a shower. It doesn't work. It's not water. What is it? Oh, it's a bottle with water inside. How the hell do you know this is water, Clorox, rum, vodka? You don't know what it is. But you assume because of the design of its container that it must be water, because that's where your brain goes. Well, the same with clown. If I put a nose, that's how you learned it. That's the container that you learned, so it must be clown. But what's inside it? So it's not the container that I'm interested in. I'm interested in what you find inside. And what is carried in a specific container, especially if it's sacred, is usually quite special. So I encourage people to consider, when you dress yourself up and go through all these steps to learn your form, ask yourself, is it really revealing what's inside you? Or are you just participating in a social exercise to take nice pictures and make videos, you know, and get people to give you likes? Because we like you much better without all that stuff on.
I like this idea of, you know, this is something that my teacher, Sue Morrison, used to say all the time, was that, you know, because people talk about the red nose being the smallest mask in the world. And she would say, well, yeah, it's mask.
A grain of rice is much smaller. It can also be a mask.
Yeah, that's a good point. But the mask, what she would say is that the mask is to reveal. It's not to hide behind, right? So it reveals you know, it's an outward sign in some ways, but it reveals what's inside. And I like this.
I don't know if I agree with that. You know, this clown nose comes into existence in the 1920s, but this universal concept goes back 20, 30, 40,000 years. So a mask is, and a mask, it covers a mask, it covers a mask. You know, at what point do we stop adding more masks? I don't know. The red nose for me is funny because people talk about it as some sacred last mask, and Lecoq put it at the end of his pedagogy. And the mask, in fact, didn't appear until year 3, and then you got 10 minutes with it or something. I don't know. It's very short, condensed. So if it's so sacred, why do people have a first workshop with a group of strangers and open up a plastic bag full of little plastic noses and throw them around and say, we're gonna... I think people that are nervous, my experience, you put something on them that cramps their nose and makes them they can't breathe. It doesn't really liberate them. Maybe it gives them a sense of hiding, or gives them social permission in a group, because people are like, "Wow, we're funsters today."
So what's
I don't think it
relationship
liberates them in any way.
What's your relationship to the nose? Because you wear this very, very large nose in which show, in Assad, and that's an interesting choice in itself. Like, what do you make that choice to wear that nose, and how do you see that?
It's kind of the show opens as a kind of parody of this hyper egomaniacal metaphysical clowning, with blowing Arctic winds and blue lights and slow methodical movements, and then I go to sleep.
Not a reference.
I sleep for up to 10 minutes. I just sleep at the top of the show, and then I take the nose off. When I wake up, it comes off, and all the makeup gets rubbed together. Right. So the idea is that when I take it off, I'm liberated. So the question I'm asking myself is, where does the dream live? In some of the Maya people I've met, there is a belief that what we call dreams is the real world, and this is the fantasy. And it was explained to me by some elder that when I wake up every day, I deal with fear, disappointment, frustration. Things never go right as planned. I'm always hustling. I'm worried about whether I'll make another day. Then I go to bed and I relax, and I can't wait to get back in the bed. In the dream, I can fly. I have superpowers. I can die and wake up again. All kinds of things. Usually not conflict. If there's conflict, it's great adventure and extremely cinematic and so forth. So why then must this be the real physics? And so I was always interested in this gateway between the physics of the dream consciousness and awake consciousness. And for me, the clown lives in that bridge. And when I look at traditional circus, where we come through a gap at the back of the pista, and the audience sitting all around, and the people come from up in the back, it reminds me of No Theater, where the spirits come down the passerelle into the real world, or Teatro Latino Popular with the platform and the painted psych. And if I come from behind the audience and go up on the platform, then I'm from the village, a player narrating a story. Then from behind the psych with a mask, I'm a spirit from the imaginary world, So there's something magical coming from the dream world into the real, or coming from the real world into the dream.
Right. And both of those are presumably valid options for a clown, either way.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at Cirque du Soleil. Someone runs out in the audience pre-show, they bring a volunteer on the stage, and they take them away. Everyone's fantasy. As the clowns get closer to them, their hearts are pounding. Please don't pick me. And they laugh when they pick someone else. And usually that person's a plant, right? Go on stage and monkey around with them and take them back, and then put on costumes, and they come out and torment them. At the end of the show, they're doing acrobatics or something. And, wow, I had no idea. There's something magical about this fascination of being pulled in, or going into a circus where the tent is sealed up, and you're put into a vessel, into an egg that's sealed from the world outside, and the lights and music, everything transports us to this world where anything's possible, where the exotic is every day, where the most beautiful bodies are flying and juggling themselves on sticks, and if you have animals and all of that, I mean, it's magical to people. And then to go back in the world afterwards, you need some sort of transition. So there's a midway with more things to walk among and see. Some clowns in an old caravan over here smoking, and somebody walking on stilts, or you have a merchandise tent to go through to get a last chance to grab a memory to take home, so it stays with you forever. There's something about this passion to go there, to be part of that experience. I want to be in that world. And that's the success of it. And I think that touches clowning in the most pure sense, like a child's fantasy when they have 2 hours to play alone in the forest before dinner, or outside in the sand pit. Their mind is imagining great fantasies. And
there's something which for me is so magical about the circus that you don't necessarily get in theaters, particularly nowadays. I mean, you do have to kind of go through a transition, I suppose, to get into a theater. You go through a lobby, and there's some kind of sense of magic about it. But there's nothing quite like the act of walking into that atmosphere of the enclosure of a circus. It's like this world, it's like this temporary world where the rules are different, and people live according to some kind of different logic, right? And you exist in that just for. I mean, this is not every circus, unfortunately, but I think a lot of circuses, and there's little tiny circuses in Colombia that I used to go to when I was doing my research. You know, you'd go into the back end of some tiny little barrio in the middle of nowhere in Bogota, you know, miles from the center of the city, and this tiny little patch of grass, you'd find this little circus tent with about, you know, a family, basically 5 or 6 people who create this show and do all the acts amongst them, and do, you know, the lines, the queues to get in are enormous. And it's a magical thing. It's like a temporary sort of liminal space.
It's beautiful. Yeah. In Russia, they have big office buildings dedicated to, you know, circus. You know, it's like a governmental office circus. You know, it's considered.
It's institutional.
Or here's a society where I was told that you don't smile. You know, you don't smile or laugh publicly. It's considered weakness. So you're only allowed to smile or laugh among family or friends or at the circus. So it's like, can you imagine? It's not socially acceptable to laugh. So
isn't that a problem?
That's incredible.
When circuses become kind of government, state controlled in that way, it just shouldn't be. It shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, it's a different. I think is, you know, Latin America is a completely different feeling from traditional Anglo-Franco circus or other. It's just so fascinating. I mean, the more, for me, it came down to, like, I started to see as an actor, as a director working in theater, so many different points of view depending on someone's training. So if I say, for example, let's pick up the rhythm in this scene. What does rhythm mean to someone? Does it mean like they're for rhythm, like for a dancer? It's on, you know, how your body line and through a segment of time. Is it internal, like Mikhail Chekhov, a rhythm, like elevate your rhythm internally? You know, so there's not a codified language in theater, and I started to find it difficult to communicate with people. So, and also I found difficult for people to be honest, because as actors you get to be quite clever. So one of my earlier teachers, Michel Delaire, who, God rest his soul, was fantastic. You know, he used to say this all the time. You know, in the little workshops I had with him. You know, don't be funny. Just stop it. You know, stop trying to be funny. And I was putting up a guard. I was being funny, using tools to make him laugh, to protect him from seeing my real feelings, because I was ashamed of myself or not sure of myself or something. As I've gotten older, I think, well, I don't care anymore. You know, I'm not doing anything to win praise. So I'm doing it out of my personal interest to explore and to share and to engage people, to hopefully play and feel something they haven't felt in a very long time. That has a very positive, you know, to feel that joy of innocence that we can't show all the time. So that for me is everything. You know, circus in Latin America is so, let's say circus, and then just someone in the street with, you know, a hula hoop. Circus artist. It's not a circus, it's someone with a hula hoop. It's like, I have a nose and I'm juggling. A man with a nose juggling.
Well, there is a lot of that. It's true. Yeah.
You know, so there's all sorts, and again, it's how you learn a word. Words are like talisman, you know, we give them power, they have magical ability. So when we hear or see that symbol, anything that could be a threat to our preferred understanding of it can be quite a heavy thing. So payaso versus clown, you know, pagliaccio, paglia, paja.
Endless
this is a
debate.
different lineage than clown. They have different, you know, clown predates it by 300 years. But it doesn't mean one's better or different. They're different, but they're the same. They've evolved to refer to similar things. So it's always interesting, people searching to have dominion, to have the right answer. I don't really care anymore. I just say, when you say, what is clown, it's a word, but the word means many beautiful things. And I think it talks about something universal in every human culture, regardless of language or gender or bank accounts or anything. There's something about the universal human condition of wonderment, of folly, of complicity, of play, of flow, high in frequency, of love, of joy, all these things. But I don't think I never get there personally when people fake it. You know, I don't get there with, you know, some lines and a nose and honk honk. That just irritates me. So because I want to know the person, I want to take all that off and say, just smile. You know, but I know exactly what the situation is.
It's very it's very inspirational talking to you, Jef. You have a way of bringing all these things together, all these threads together, that in a
way of pissing off a lot of people who disagree, and that's fine.
No, it's beautiful. I love it. I could listen to this forever, you know, for hours and hours. It's it's very wonderful. It's like a philosophy, tract of philosophy, like a just kind of coming spontaneously out of your mouth, and it's amazing.
How else is it going to come out of my mouth?
Well, it comes out in your fingers too when you're typing. So words, you know, talking about words, and you've said some words today, which, as you said, probably make people have thoughts and disagree. So, comment, guys. What do you think? What do you think about everything?
He must know he's talking. He said words.
This guy knows what he's talking about.
It's true.
He's
too many words. Too many words. It's true. That's my next show should be called Words.
Stop talking. Go back to the silence.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think there's something beautiful about, for example, Slava's work, where he doesn't speak, you know, and when he speaks, it's sort of a grammar with some little inside jokes or something. To me, that was epic when I saw it in New York the first time. You know, I shed 5,000 tears because I thought, oh, such a simple theatrical effect could have such a profound, you know, there's so many staging elements in that show that are quite brilliant. An intimate space where I saw it for the first time, and you know, it's quite different. You play it in a massive theater with 3,000 people than an intimate theater with 300 people, you know, where you can see the eyes.
Different kind of challenge.
But you know, from Colombia to Mexico are very similar. The traditions and the, you know, it's back to this, man. It's the more traditional Italian circus, Spanish and Portuguese, Brazilian. You know, working with artists in Cirque du Soleil, like acrobats on number, you know, say a ropes number in Kidam or something, and trying to unify the number of the act. When you have Olympic gymnasts who've been converted to circus acrobats, and then you have people from Brazil who come from generations of circus performing. They have very different ideas about how to approach training and performance. Trying to unify them is quite interesting.
And talk about sort of commercial, you know, commercial aspect of circus and clown. It feels to me like there are some Cirque du Soleil shows where they, you know, there really is this kind of like virtuosity that's on display, and not necessarily a lot of heart or a lot of like I don't know what you're talking about when you know, what are we looking for in theater? This kind of depth and this kind of insight and being present, really truly being present and being able to see what's on the inside. Do you feel like that's something that Cirque manages sometimes, ever?
I think it depends. In my experience, most of the clown acts I've seen in Cirque du Soleil, they don't align always with what I consider to be clown, and they align with, you know, very good quality physical comic performances or routines. I think, and not to say that people are not clown or that, you know, not brilliant or whatever. I want to say that it depends, you know, how the player. For me, it's all about the game and that kind of scale of circus. There are certain traditions that they may or may not play with. I think some actors just get a job and they're filling in and learning a track. I think others come in as specialty acts, like Toto from Argentina did a version of David Shiner's filmmaker, and then he does a number with a car with the paramours in the car of mime. But even when he did it, he brought a level of impulsive playing that was very aware of the space. Like he filled the entire tent. Or John Gilkey, like when he's playing, his energy radiates, you know, all the way to the back of the parking lot. I mean, it's so electric. So you have some artists that just vibrate, and their impulse is so profoundly powerful. It's like Thor slamming a hammer. Boom! I mean, it goes. They don't have to try. If others have very soft gestures, they never quite complete them before they move to the next one. They're doing a mimic or, you know, doing some kind of physical choreography that they haven't yet discovered personally how to connect it or align it, or you know, when I saw them, that maybe they were standing in or they didn't quite yet. You know, it takes time. It's not something you learn quickly. As I said, it took me years. It can take 3 or 5 years to sort of do something over and over every night and get it.
If you're stepping into something that somebody else has created in the first place, and you're trying to sort of make it.
Because you've got to do the choreography right, for the timing, for the music, for the physical musicality, to keep the show going. But then to own it, to as you're talking about, put heart into, and then there are people who think about a lot of heart, you know, and these people usually talk or they indicate with the eyes and make googie eyes in the audience or something.
Yeah.
Or do,
Yeah.
They use all these tricks to connect with the audience, to get the audience to like them, to feel
Yeah.
for them, but these are just social tricks. If you can do that, if you can get the audience with you by showing your back and nothing else, by, you know, not needing all these tricks, I don't know. It's difficult. For each person, it's different. I think there are many possibilities, and some are excellent at different techniques than I particularly like. So I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I would say that heart is something hard to transmit in such a massive space. You know, if it's full of people, it's much easier than if it's an empty audience, because people side by side, they become a battery, you know, so the energy radiated from this person hits the sphere of the biofield energy of the next, and they sort of like become one big battery. So if one person over here is radiating, then I can use, you know, the stage can count on that to energize all the way around the floor. So it just really depends on many things. But I think the choreography, the direction, the support going in and out, the sort of where the audience was emotionally before the clown enters, and where the clown's trying to take them to before the next act starts, because they're setting up a rigging or something. All these things are taken into consideration. As a director of circus, this is what I'm considering: the logistics of, just as I would direct in theater, considering logistics, like what's the emotional thing. Like in Snowshow, we had 12 scenes. Well, some people will think, well, you want the audience to laugh at the end of each scene. And the show, the scene worked, they laughed a lot. Others will say, no, you want to get them nearly laughing and then sustain that into the next one, so that they don't laugh. And it's like inflating a balloon and letting it breathe. And then at one point, boom, you know, you really shock them. So they're not in control of that. They go out of mind and into a collective kind of orgasm. But it depends. People think, well, Russian school, they have different ideas. So we tried to explore so many things when we had the show in New York. It was quite interesting.
I think listening to you, it would be, I think, incredible to make a show with you. Do you do that? Do you make shows with individuals?
Yes.
You help direct?
Yes. Yeah, of course. Help conceive, direct. Also, I play with you. We make a show together. Come on. Whenever we're group, let's go. You know. Yeah, of course. Directing and artistic directing and conceiving, and you know, for me, it's never. I don't like to say this is how I would do a show and try to make you do what I do. I'm really interested in trying to tap something. I'm very curious, so I want to know what. You know, if I give an exercise, one of my pedagogical bases is 3 steps: lo que es, lo que puede ser, lo que podría ser. What it is, what it can be, what it might be. So if I pick something up and I say what it is, by form and material, I can see this is familiar to me. It's a roll of masking tape. I already know its function and all the ways I would use it. So I would practice using it for what it is. I would go through manually. I could leave it. I could pick it up. I could hide it. I could store it away. I could clean. And then I would use it for what it can be, like to scratch something practical, and what it might be, something fantastical, right? So when I do that exercise, if I give a group of workshop people the same 3 objects, 10 people here to me. After 10,000 people, someone will always surprise me with a new solution. And this is mind-blowing, because we spend years and years and years with this object, and you have 500-600 realizations, and you give it to some 20-year-old kid in some remote location, and they show you things you never did. Blows your mind. So, like, that is fantastic. And so there's always something beautiful in each person that's completely dependent on your perspective and your experience, and that's where the magic is. Not that you can show me that you can repeat what everyone else has been doing for 100 years. That's also fascinating, but do that with your own, you know, joie de vivre or whatever. COVID.
I feel like COVID. I should be wearing a mask right now.
Yeah, you should be wearing a mask.
Speaking of masks.
Oh God. Sorry, wait. I gotta. For all those who are just tuning in.
The problem with COVID is it's given masks a bad name, Jef.
Yeah, I was a fool. I went out of town last week and rode like 5 buses and full of people, like, you were a fool. Connector buses in little villages, you know.
The good thing is you're still a fool.
This is the mask, you know, that people wear. It's like,
Yeah.
So,
Or
they wear
become
like
the thing in England. I was in England
penis out of the
recently.
pants move is my favorite. Like,
And where
okay,
I
so
am
you
it-
just want to have a stroke. You just want to have neurological problems. So, okay.
Why do people
it's
do
like a big
that?
penis hanging out of the pants. I don't understand why you put your nose.
You know what
out.
it is, Jeff? It's like it's obeying the rules without obeying the rules. That's what it is. It's like, oh, I'm obeying the rules. I have a mask. Look, I'm legit, but I'm not. Look, so I'm not really wearing it.
Don't wear it. Wear it. You know, it's the idea is I'll take care of my but it's all the other people here. But I don't know. I just lost 2 more friends in the last 2 weeks for this stuff. So stop counting 200. You know, so it's frustrating. It's not about me. It's about someone else.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think
I should.
If
come
you,
to...
Barnaby, want to talk to me or anyone else, sure, let's talk.
I think I should come to Mexico and make a show. We should make a show together.
But also, I mean, before we go, we have to go. But also, I wanted to give a shout out to Django Edwards and Nouveau Clown Institute because,
yay, Django!
Django and Leo Bassi and those people. I mean, they opened my eyes to another possibility. And Django's focus on clown as social warrior. You know, it's going to was eye-opening because I never thought of clown in this way, and I still am not sure where I fall in that. But there's a powerful place for this social sense of belonging, and I think a lot of people put the red nose on, go to Cabaret Week in New York or whatever city, London, because they want to belong to a community. A lot of people that don't really sort of misfits or don't quite vibe with the theater community or mainstream, and they're looking for something alternative, and clown gives so many possibilities and brings people together. So when Django started to say these kind of 70s guys responding to to government control and so forth by being hippie clowns and freedom through community and all that, there's as you know, this massive movement in Europe that he has helmed for so many decades. So I think Django was a huge influence and remains a huge influence on me. A good friend, Johnny Melville, for the work we do together in retreats with frequency and connectedness and raising consciousness and all this kind of stuff has shaped my
beautiful.
My
I'd love to have Johnny and Django on. So, if you could put in a word, let them know.
Django would love to. I'm sure Johnny would do it. Sure, just write him. I'll write you if you want.
Well, I'm going to. Yeah.
Johnny would be a great guest. Django, of course. Amen. Clown. We're all born clown. Amen. Fantastic, like a shaman, kind of a fool shaman.
Yeah.
Powerful. What I learned from Django, and I think what was contradictory to Russian school, was confidence. To provide people the reassurance that the confidence, you're a genius already, and have confidence. We'll celebrate you in all your failure and all your attempt, because your joyous attempt or your desire is so beautiful. We'll celebrate you, and we'll support you, we'll hold you up.
Instead of knocking you down and like saying you're not good enough, you're not good enough.
You're not good. It's not about a competition of being good. It's not about ego. Get over the social fear of failure, get over the egos, strip all that away and get to the sense of, and one path to that is by saying we're all brothers, we're all family, and convincing people that's the case, and reconnecting with that spirit of love. The other is to say perhaps it's all about happiness, and for some people that works. For me, I don't find that happiness is some state that I'm in all the time. I can be miserable and still have joy. Happy, not so much.
I love
joy
that.
I can have while I'm sad. What a
great sentiment to end on, Jeff. That you can be miserable and still have joy. I love that.
Yeah, but I may not be happy, because happy.
Yeah.
Well, happy. It doesn't make me happy. Make me want to cut my wrist. Anyway, a lot of blah blah. Barnaby, has been a pleasure. I thank you for
please go and
COVID
lie down
delirium.
and recover and get over, and don't keel over. Actually, you can now. We've done the conversation. It's fine.
If anybody would like to ask a question really seriously, put it in the group. Put dates.
Put it in the group.
We can entertain your questions.
And we'll chat on the group, and we'll have you back. How about that?
Oh yeah, anytime, or just personally, we can chat.
Yeah. That would be
anything
awesome.
at all. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Jeff. And bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in.